Alas, we finally have the DJI Osmo Action 4. And as you can see, it's pretty much exactly the same as the Osmo 3, they just added a little 4 right here. No, but in all seriousness, guys, I'm actually super excited about this camera. I've been waiting for it for a long time. Today, I'm gonna tell you what has changed, what stayed the same, what I wish the camera had, and ultimately, if it's worth your money. Real quick, before we get into the video, I want you all to know that it is sponsored by DJI. They sent me the Osmo 4 early so that I could make this review, so please keep that in mind while you're watching this. That being said, I'm not gonna be unfair about it. I'm gonna tell you everything I like and don't like about the camera. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. First things first, let's start with price. Osmo Action 4 costs $399 for just the camera and $499 for the Adventure Combo. If you get the Adventure Combo, you'll get this pole, this battery pack, this little housing for the camera, and a bunch of little accessories. I'd say the price jump is definitely worth it for the battery pack alone, but we'll touch on that later. Taking a closer look at the Osmo 4's form factor and comparing it to the Osmo 3's form factor, we can see that it's like pretty much the same. It's hard to tell the differences. There's a few of them, which I'll break it down in a second, but for the most part, they're exactly the same, which actually is a good thing in my opinion. This means we can use all the same batteries and we can use all our old mounts. We don't have to go like buy a bunch of new stuff. That always kind of sucks when it happens, unless they make big improvements. But there's honestly nothing that could be improved on the batteries and the mounts. We'll get to that later. We can see that the lens looks slightly different with some added markings and wider glass. It also doesn't extend like quite as far out of the body as the Osmo 3 does. You can see it just extends wider on this side and a little bit taller. There's 6 dots on the Osmo 4 speaker instead of 2 dashes on the Osmo 3. And the last difference I was able to notice is there's no DJI branding on the bottom near the mounting system on the Osmo 4. All right, now for like the biggest changes between Osmo 3 and Osmo 4. With the first biggest change being a new sensor. There's an entirely new sensor in this, which is definitely a pretty big deal. Originally on the Osmo 3, there was a 1/1.7 inch sensor, and now there's a 1/1.3 inch sensor in the Osmo 4, which means we get higher dynamic range in high contrast situations, and most of all, better low light performance when we're shooting in dark scenarios. We'll stick on the concept of high dynamic range for a second and take a look at these two comparisons. On the Osmo 3, you can see much darker shadows underneath my hand and the bushes and the trees. The information's just not there like it is on Osmo 4. You can really notice when we get into a high contrast situation like inside a car. Mia is pretty much unseeable on the inside on the Osmo 3, whereas on Osmo 4 you can see both in and out of the windows. Since we're getting an all-new sensor in Osmo 4, this also means we're going to get a different looking image. Not necessarily better or worse from one another, but different. To test this, I got a side-by-side shot on Osmo 3 and Osmo 4. Let's see if we can notice any differences. 4K, 24 FPS. What's the difference? Is there a difference in the image? I don't know. Tell me. If you ask me, I think that Osmo 4 looks a lot sharper, not necessarily in a good or bad way, again, but in a preference sort of way. If you noticed, you could see like a lot more details on my facial hair. You could see every little grain, every pore in my skin, whereas like on the Osmo 3, it looked a lot smoother, a lot softer. Not necessarily a difference in the quality, but definitely a difference in the look. DJI seems to really be pushing for the low light performance on this camera, so I put it to the test to see what it exactly looks like. Let's check out that footage. All right, guys, it is twilight, just after sunset. Not completely dark, but still a little bit of remaining light, but it's pretty damn dark outside. Right now, we're at ISO 800 with the 50 shutter, and we're just gonna keep bumping that ISO up and see how long the image can last before it just completely breaks. From my screen on the LCD, it looks a little dark, so let's bump it up to 1600. Okay, this is ISO 1600. I'm gonna be super impressed if the image looks good at 1600 ISO. Because I have never heard of that in an action camera, but okay, now we're at ISO 3200 at a 50-second shutter. If this looks good, I'm gonna actually be insanely impressed. ISO 6400, 50-second shutter. We're maxed out now. ISO
1,800. If this looks even remotely watchable, that's impressive.
Now, I'm not sure who's exactly buying an action camera to get good low light performance, but if that is you, I think that test footage was actually fairly impressive as far as action cameras go. I mean, I've never been able to shoot over 400 ISO on any action cam without the footage being pretty much unusable. And I would say once we got to like the 1600 ISO range is probably where I would cap it out on this camera. It still didn't look great at 1600, but it was, I would say, usable. There was like kind of a weird smearing effect that was happening, if you noticed, when I was like turning my head. I'm not sure what that's all about. Overall, pretty impressed with 800 ISO and 1600 ISO, looking decent on this cam. All right, the next big improvement between Osmo 3 and Osmo 4 is a revamped 10-bit color profile, calling it 10-bit D-Log M. This is more on the professional side of things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's just a color grading profile that gives us a super flat look like a grayscale, and then when you lay a preset over it, it gives us a ton of flexibility to really work with and flex these colors. And this new optimized version does really well in high contrast situations, so that if we're got a really bright spot and a really shadowy spot, we still get a lot of information in both the shadows and the highlights, which is great. Now, the last real new big addition that I'm seeing between Osmo 4 and Osmo 3 is a revamped microphone. There's now 3 mics into an array where we can switch between mono and stereo recording, and there's a wind noise reduction mode to help greatly reduce environmental noise. I did a couple audio tests with just the camera and built-in microphone and no editing, so let's play that footage and see how it sounds.
Hey guys, this is an audio test on the all-new Osmo 4. There's no mic in here. This is just the camera itself as it comes, and I am just talking.
Okay, I think that sounds insane, but then again, I was in the middle of a lake in a super quiet situation where there was like no wind. That being said, I put it to more of like a real world test where I went into my backyard, walked around, and there was like wind in the trees and stuff. So let's see how that sounds.
All right guys, this is a more real world test of the microphone, as there's kind of some wind coming in and out of the camera. There should be. We've got stereo microphone on right now, and I've got wind noise reduction on. Can you hear much wind coming into this thing, or does it sound pretty good?
Lastly, I did a comparison between Osmo 3 and Osmo 4 to see how big of an upgrade we're actually getting here. Check that footage out.
Now let's see how the Osmo 4 compares to the Osmo 3 audio. This is Osmo 4. This is Osmo 3. It's still in my backyard. It's kind of windy. Is there a big difference in the microphones, or is there not really a difference at all?
Okay, next up, let's talk about the batteries. The batteries are the same as they were on the Osmo Action 3, which is actually a great thing because I am 100% confident that they're the best batteries to ever hit the freaking action camera market. They last forever. I love them. They're the furthest thing from temperamental. They last super long in extreme heat, and they last super long in extreme cold. It's also the same battery charging case as Osmo 3, which is great because we can use our old ones. If you don't know about the battery case, it also acts as a portable charger, and it features fast charging. This is so sick because in under 20 minutes, 18 minutes to be exact, you can plug your camera in and charge from 0% to 80%, giving you 2 hours of shooting while you're on the go. It's ridiculous. It just equates to infinite filming. Not a new feature, but insane. Jumping over to resolution and frame rates, we don't see any difference between Osmo 3 and Osmo 4. Our max resolution and frame rate mode is still 4K at 120 FPS. The lens field of view on the camera is the same as well, with a 155-degree field of view, which is the widest in all of the action cameras out there on the market, which is great because the wider the footage, the more immersive the shots, and ultimately that's what you want in a POV action camera. Next topic, the mounting system, also the same, but thank God it is because it's the best thing to ever hit the freaking action camera world. Let me show you real quick. Pull mount, sticky mount, mouth mount. Grab your camera. Boom. Not going anywhere. Clip. Not going anywhere. Boom. Not going anywhere. You can just hot swap the mounts so quickly and you never have to deal with the freaking thumb screw thing, and it's the best thing ever. Another reason why I switched over in the first place. Osmo 4 is also seen a little bit of a bump in terms of its waterproofness. Now, instead of being waterproof up to 16 meters like the Osmo 3, it's now waterproof up to 18 meters. It's also worth noting there's still the dual full color touchscreens on Osmo 4. You got this front LCD here where you can adjust the settings. As you can you see yourself? So if you're vlogging, you can watch yourself from the front here and actually adjust it any setting you want, lighting and all that from the front, as well of course, your standard on the back. What I would have loved to see on Osmo 4 would have been like either a 2.7K 240 mode or a 4K 240 mode. I think that's the next quantum leap that we're waiting for. Other than that, I would have loved to see the media mod on the Osmo 4. I've heard that it's to be announced, but we don't know when it's coming out yet. But the media mod, for those of you that don't know, GoPro makes it, and it's a really rad attachment that sticks into your GoPro and has a built-in shotgun mic that is really protective against wind, which is great. Another thing that's apparently coming out, but we're not sure when, is a float mount. Having something like a big floaty on here so that if you use it in water sports and you drop your camera, it doesn't sink to the bottom of the ocean would be pretty nice. For now, we have to use neck straps and whatnot, which isn't the end of the world, but it'd be nice to have some security with the float mount. Apparently it's coming. Other than that, I really don't think too much is missing from this camera. Reliability, long-lasting batteries, mounting system, and overall just a great image. Those are all things that I care about the most in action cams, and that's exactly what DJI locked down on in the first place with the Osmo 3. I think the Osmo 4 retains all the things that I love about the Osmo 3 with a few new improvements, which is only a good thing. In all honesty, I think if you own an Osmo 3, it's not worth the jump. I don't think there's enough there for you to have it be worth $400. That being said, if you've never used an Osmo camera and you're interested in trying out a new action camera line, I cannot preach these cameras enough. I think it's priceless to have an action camera that you know is gonna work every time you use it with no battery failures or SD errors. That's what I look for, and that's what I trust in the Osmo series, and the 4 packs the same punch as the 3 with a few new improvements. That's my final verdict. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and hey, I'll catch you next upload. Peace!